What's up, book nerds? So today, better late than never, I am finally filming my August wrap-up. It was actually surprisingly a kind of good reading month for me. I was surprised by that because I went back to work, school started, and everything just went insane like it normally does around August. But nonetheless, I finished 6 books in August, and so I'm excited to share them with you today. The first book that I completed in August is actually technically a July book, because I finished it on the first day of Booktubeathon. I finished it on the first day of Booktubeathon. However, the first day was technically the last day of July. So, it didn't make it in my July wrap-up, but it is gracing us with its presence in the August wrap-up. And this would be Haruki Murakami's book, Absolutely on Music, Conversations with Seiji Ozawa. If you don't know who Seiji Ozawa is, he is a very famous conductor of orchestras. Specifically, most famous would be the Boston Symphony. The Boston Symphony is a very big deal. It is a major symphony in the United States. Anyway, so Seiji Ozawa is a famous conductor. Haruki Murakami is a very successful and famous author. And the two of them happen to be very good friends, and they get together for coffee and tea and just listening parties. These conversations were kind of following their listening parties. And what I mean by that is they would sit down and listen to a record, something that either Seiji Ozawa recorded and conducted, or possibly just something that he conducted, and maybe it's of Leonard Bernstein instead, who is another famous conductor and musician and composer who Seiji Ozawa studied with. This book is written in an interview form. Most of the time they're talking about actual works of music, but sometimes they do delve into history of the orchestra or Seiji Ozawa's life and some various things that have happened to him while being in the music industry. What I had hoped from this book was a little bit more of Seiji Ozawa's life and his background, but really what you got was just straight up conversations. I guess I probably should have read the cover, Conversations with Seiji Ozawa. Of course, what do I expect? Nonetheless, it was a really interesting read and very enjoyable. If you're into classical music at all, if you're into the scene, if you know anything about it, definitely pick it up. I would say if you're brand new to the classical music scene and you don't really have any background with it, you'd be sort of lost while reading this, because honestly they get very technical. 4 out of 5 stars for me. The next book that I read in the month of August was Howls Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. I ended up just falling in love with this book and all of the characters and the world. And I'm so excited because when I started it, I didn't realize that it actually is a series. There's a few more books in this world, I guess, in this realm. I'm not sure if the story is related. From what I have read, it looks like it's not totally related to each other. However, I guess we have some of the same characters that come back and some of the same, like, maybe magic systems. I'm not sure. But I'm very excited to continue on with this series of sorts. In fact, if you've read any of the following books to this, please let me know how they are and how you liked them, because I'm definitely going to get to them. I'm just kind of curious what you thought about them. Howls Moving Castle follows our protagonist, Sophie. The main villain in this book is the Witch of the Waste, and very early on in the book, the Witch of the Waste and Sophie meet, and basically Sophie gets cast with a spell that turns her into an old woman. And so I thought it was interesting that you kind of see how people treat Sophie differently when she's an old woman as opposed to when she's a younger woman. And she kind of comments on that a little bit. So it was interesting to see some like ageism commentary a little bit in this book. It is a children's novel technically, and so it's very easy to read. I read it in like 2 days. Sophie runs away and kind of looks for solace somewhere, and she finds Howls Moving Castle, which everyone else is afraid of, and really she would have been afraid of it when she was a young girl, but now that she's an old lady, her personality actually changes a little bit, and she's not really afraid of things as much as she used to be. And so she meets Howl and kind of just crashes his moving castle. And Howl is a wizard with his own kind of secrets and life and he has a cohort around him. Someone named Michael is a character, and also Calcifer, who is a fire demon, and he lives in the fireplace, and he was a really fun character to read. I also watched the movie directly after I read the book, and the movie is very, very, very different. It almost has a completely different plot line, starting from about the middle of the movie to the end. It was just kind of completely veering off to a different direction. So they're very different. The movie is beautiful. I love Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli, and I just love all of the stuff that comes out of Studio Ghibli. So it's definitely, I appreciated both. I think I still like the book better, but the film is really excellent too. That's based off the book. Very loosely based though. I ended up giving this book 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is actually a manga, and that was Fruits Basket Volume 3. Honestly, I can't even remember very much of what happened. I think I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I'm liking this manga, but sometimes I find the characters hard to follow because the names confuse me, and I really should just like sit down and sift through who everyone is, but some of the names are so similar to each other that I just lose track of who is who. I'm not analyzing this very deeply though, I'm just reading it in between things as I go through other books. So I'm still enjoying this. I just, for the life of me right now, can't even remember the plot. It also could be because I was incredibly busy while I was reading this, and I think my brain just did not soak it up. Another book that I read in August is Heidi by Johanna Spiri. This is another book that's in the children's literature canon. It is a classic of children's literature. It is adorable and beautiful, and my cat is moving my tripod. Thank you. Thank you, cat. There are a lot of very heavily Christian themes in this, so if that's something that is not up your alley, you may not appreciate this as much, but for me, it was something that I could see myself maybe reading to my children someday. We follow Heidi, who is orphaned, and she goes to live with her grandfather in the mountains, and the grandfather is kind of a hermit, and he has isolated himself from family and friends, and we get a sense that there's something in his past that he is hiding from, that he's running away from, and Heidi is sort of the defroster of sorts of the situation. She defrosts his heart, and he adores her very much, and then Heidi is swept away to stop, cat, oh my gosh, sorry, the cat cannot leave me alone when I'm filming ever. So anyways, the story is about how Heidi, with her childlike innocence, sort of breaks through barriers of hard-hearted adults. And it's just adorable and sweet. A lot of just wholesome, old-fashioned morals. And I just enjoyed this very much. 5 out of 5 stars, of course. The next book that I read, I really enjoyed as well. Apparently, I enjoyed all the books. I love all the books. And that was A Man Called Eva, I think is how you pronounce it. Although in my head, I kept saying Ove, and I know that's wrong. This is a very popular book right now with very good reason. It was written very well, and it just tugs on your heartstrings. Uva is kind of your typical grumpy old man character who is, you know, hey kids, get off my lawn, that kind of grumpy old man character. But he's really lovable. In fact, I was comparing him to another book that I read with a grumpy old man character this year, which was, what was it? The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. This also has a grumpy man character and had sort of a similar feel to A Man Called Eva. However, I liked A Man Called Eva better. I don't even want to give too much plot to this one because it's so much of the emotions are just slowly revealed as you learn about his life, and it just like keeps sucker punching you right to the heart. I loved it. I think everyone should read it. It was so good. I might try to make my husband read it. And the final book that I finished in August was The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I had never read The Hunger Games before. This was a first time around for me, and I really enjoyed it. I think, did I give it 4 or 5 stars? Not sure. I think I want to say I gave it 4. I think I would give it 4 stars right now, looking back on it. I will definitely be continuing with the series. You probably know what The Hunger Games is about. I was going between the audiobook and the hard copy. of this, and I enjoyed reading it in the hard copy a little more. I thought the narrator of the audiobook was very good. However, I felt like she had an older voice. I think she probably was an older lady, and I just wanted Katniss to have a younger voice. However, the audiobook narrated all the different voices very well. So from boy to girl to, you know, old to young. I thought she did a really good job providing character behind each voice. And so I think the audiobook maybe influenced me on my rating overall, but I'm definitely going to continue it. I couldn't put it down. I finished it really, really fast. It was easy to get through. And I'm looking forward to going through the rest of the trilogy. I just got to get my hands on a copy of the next book in the trilogy. And I'm also kind of on a book buying ban, so I'm trying not to buy books, but I might have to break my rule so that I can continue on with this series. Those were all the books that I read in August. Let me know down below in the comments what you read in August, or if you've read any of these books. I had a good reading month. It was kind of, you know, kind of lighter books, more young adult and children's literature, but it was great. I had a great time. I hope you're having a wonderful week wherever you are, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.